This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Forge Irish Stout. Delighted today to be joined with Dave Coldwell. It's the morning after the night before. We've had a bit of a sleep, a time to sort of digest what we saw last night. Thought firstly just touch on that. A very, very entertaining night of fights. Was you pleased with how that sort of those 8 fights went on Saudi?
Do you know what? I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Listen, it had a lot of talk before it. It's such a huge card, a massive event, and the fight delivered. I enjoyed it. It's we had a bit of everything, didn't we?
Yeah.
Spectacular performances, couple upsets, exciting fight. Yeah, really good night. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Well, we firstly touch on Anthony Joshua's destructive performance against Otto Wallin. Many saying it's definitely the best since post Usyk. Some saying the best since Kubrat Pulev, Alexander Povetkin, those types of performances. How did you see the fight and what did you make of it?
I thought he boxed really well. I liked what I saw. Um, it was smooth. It was smooth and fluid. Didn't overthink things. It just looked as though he was confident and trusted what he was doing and what he was meant to do in there, and it led to a really good performance. Almost punch perfect performance, really, to be honest.
And when you look at sort of the display from AJ, how big do you feel like that point was to prove for him after the disappointment with the Hellenius fight and the disappointment with the Franklin fight to go and finish the year on such a destructive performance must be, how big was that for him to prove that point?
Yeah, really. Listen, you've got to remember it's part of a process. Coming off of um, two big losses with Usyk and the kind of the fallout from that, how people have kind of like topsy turvy their opinions of AJ and spoken about him and things like that. Um, it's been no doubt a difficult period for him. But he spent this year. I like the fact that he's had 3 fights in 9 months.
Yeah. This isn't been in
Activity.
ages.
We say it to these. We say it all the time, and coaches, they want the fighters to be active. Promoters, obviously, it's difficult for them. But the older fighters, olden day fighters, used to fight a lot more regular than what fighters do these days.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, a lot of fighters now like to have a fight and then go and have an holiday and just chill out and do nothing for a couple of months and then come and they want to have a 3 month training camp for every fight. You don't need 3 months training camps for every fight. But the fact that he's had 3 fights in 9 months, it's kind of like ironing out the creases. And the mental stresses and dealing with the 2 Usyk losses. Fighters, sometimes it can take a while to get over losses and to get over things that when dips happen in their careers, and they're not just robots. And I feel as though that time away in the gyms, each fight has been a process. Franklin, Hellenius, they're part of a process, getting back, and then he's linked up with Ben and Lee Wiley and team down there, and it just looks a real comfortable fit. Yeah. And it's allowed him to go out there and kind of like express himself, and have confidence in what he's doing, and put on a fantastic performance last night to round the year out. And so it puts him in really good position, obviously in real terms, but also mentally going into 2024.
And as we were saying there with AJ, with Ben Davison now, do you feel like that was a destructive performance and he's riding high off that? But do you feel like we could be seeing the corner be a turn corner for AJ? We know that he done, the dark room retreat, a bit of soul searching, especially throughout this week, was the behaviour from him was something that we hadn't really seen much on a fight week. Very, very short, very on focus.
But I think we have. Listen, this gets all blown out of proportion. Fighters are the same as everybody else. We have moods.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a mood. Sometimes you're in a happy mood, and sometimes you're in a mood where you want to talk, and sometimes you're not really. Now, that's us that aren't getting punched in the head and aren't in the middle of training camps and aren't, coming towards the end of after a long slog preparing for a fight. and then they've got all the razzmatazz of media and stuff getting pulled here, there, and everywhere. Sometimes they might just can't be asked.
Yeah.
And it's like if AJ is saying all the correct things and putting on this media trained performance, then a section of fans will be like, blah blah, he's like a robot, is this, blah blah. And then when he's like being like a fighter who wants to knock somebody else out and talking a little bit more stern, and this thing with I find it funny the way he was in that interview when Dev Sarni was presenting it, was interviewing him, right?
Yeah.
How do you expect him to be? Listen, I think Dev's funny and he's a great crack, and he knows what he's doing, and he's not offended by shit like that because he knows he's built his name through being a little bit of a dick on Twitter and things like that. I mean, which we all can be, and it's a bit of fun. It's not to be taken too seriously. He's good at his job, but if you're going to spend years battering somebody on social media, then when you're up close to them, how are you expecting them? How is anybody expecting them to be all like, "Hey mate, how you doing?"
Yeah,
they're not going to be, are they? And or if they're real, they're not going to be. So for me, AJ will be real. You know, it's like, what do I want to speak to you for? I ain't got no time for you. You know, you've done nothing but dig me out. So that I felt was blown out of all proportion. I think that was just a normal reaction, and it didn't. Listen, that's not going to offend Dev Sarni, and if it does, then maybe he shouldn't say what he wants to say on Twitter. But it won't offend him, so he'll carry on doing that. And it's banter, and it's some people will respond well to it, and some people say, "No, fuck you, I'm not talking to you." And it was just one of those things. And like I said, well, how do you want a fighter to be on fight week? It's down to that individual how they feel at that time. Sometimes they might be all laid back and cool, and sometimes they might just want to get in there and rip somebody's head off. And so, therefore, their persona around people fight week is going to be like that.
Definitely. And we mentioned about the link up with Ben Davison. We talked about his performance from the two Derek James fights to now this performance from Ben Davison, which was arguably his best. When you look at AJ's career, do you feel like he should stick with Ben Davison or go back to Dallas and Texas with Derek James?
I've never thought since word came out that we're training with Ben, I've never thought he's going to have this fight with Ben and go over to Dallas and link back up to Derek James. He's training with Ben Davison now. That's all I see, and why not? Because he looked comfortable. For me, it's about fighters being comfortable with the coach and about the coach being comfortable with the fighter. And if you've got that gel, that's what matters, because if you've got that gel, there's more chance of you getting the best out of that fighter. And there's more chance of that fighter being relaxed in the ring to be able to carry out what they've been doing for weeks beforehand. If they're not relaxed in the ring, and if they're overthinking things, and if they're tense and everything, they're not going to just let it flow. And obviously he's got a good fit there, because his performance last night was fantastic.
Definitely. We'll move on to another, from one heavyweight to another. Deontay Wilder coming up short against Joseph Parker, which was seen as a shock, but not sort of. A lot wasn't surprised. What did you make of the Wilder and Parker fight, with Parker coming up victorious?
Yeah, I won't go as far as saying it's a shock. It's a bit of an upset, but it's not a shock, because Wilder's always been throughout his career where he could be outboxed, and he has been outboxed, but he has this power where if he lands this right hand, he's going to turn your lights out. He never landed the right hand last night properly, so he never turned the lights out. So I think what was not perhaps a shock, but what was like, oh, okay, a bit of a surprise, was how confident, for me, Parker was right from round one. Positioning in the ring, what he was doing, he had total beliefs that he was going to win that fight. And the reason why I say that is because I feel as though in the past, Parker, perhaps in his big fights, hasn't let it flow, hasn't fully believed that he could do it. But I just feel, again, the coach Andy Lee, I feel as though Andy's that has just gelled so well, where Andy can can say things to Parker, and Parker's just like, yeah, okay, go out there and do it. And I noticed that when Parker fought Chisora, because there were moments in that fight, I'm up close in that ring. I'm seeing how close I am to Parker's face, his demeanor. There were moments in that fight, although he was winning the fight, where you always felt as though it could unravel. He looked uncomfortable, but then Andy Lee would be in his ear, and then he'd be switched back on, and he'd have that confidence back in, and obviously more time that they've had together. And then you saw him last night, and he had total confidence in what he was going to do. Having said that, I will say I was very, very not disappointed, but I was very surprised in Wilder's performance. How right from round one he came out just circling, moving. I'm thinking, wait, but when he's old school stick and move, stick and jab, when he's trying to stick that jab on him, he's almost like moving at the same time. And he was like in between, and he wasn't getting, he wasn't getting the timing right or anything. And he looked terrible.
Yeah.
And you just thought, what's he doing? I mean, I've been looking forward to seeing him fight again, because this goes to show that anybody can look great on the pads. Because when they've had training clips of him with Malik Scott, it's looked really good. And I've been like, he's got a left hand now. He's got left up. He's got a good jab. His balance looked good. So he's going to be, if he can put that into a ring, he's going to be a threat in the division again, a real threat. So I was really looking forward to seeing how this performance would be. And right from round one, I was looking at him, I was thinking, wow, his legs look bad. I mean, listen, he's never had the best balance. He's never had the best footwork. I'm not saying that, but he looked terrible. And you've got to say, it was, and then it was like I think it took until the last 2 rounds maybe, when he was really trying to put it on. But there's no way after putting in that performance all night that Parker was going to fold in that last couple of rounds. There's no way. He was smart, and the last round he started smothering him and making sure he was too close. And in fact, it was Parker that looked like the one that could end the fight. I thought Parker was really, really good, and I thought Wilder was really, really poor. But that's, like I said, you can say that's what Pat Wilder's been throughout his career. He's always had that air where you could outbox him, but he never looked like he had the legs under him. He never looked like he had the balance on him to be able to land that right hand. So it never looked on to me.
I was gonna talk about that when it came to a game plan from Deontay Wilder. Obviously, the game plan for him is always to land that dynamite of a right hand. But I don't know if you sort of from the first round to the second, as the rounds went on and the round Parker got more and more success. I don't think we didn't see any change from the way that Deontay Wilder fought. So, what was your thoughts on that, on the game plan from Wilder there? Because obviously there was no plan B really or urgency to change.
It was almost like you'd gone from the most destructive puncher in the division, that intimidates a lot of fighters, long arms. Obviously, he couldn't do that with Fury because Fury was the bigger man. If you look through Wilder's fights, he used that range. He doesn't have much of a jab, but he used that hand as a long stick, and he's lining you up basically for the long right hand. But he didn't even do that. He was literally like he boxed like a boxer that can't punch, but was afraid to get hit. It was just moving. I was baffled by it, and it never really changed. And there was no urgency either.
Yeah.
When you're losing the fight, there was no urgency at all. In order to say to him, listen, this shit's not working. You let the bombs go. And then is that why at the end of the fight he put his hands up because he thought that he was actually winning the fight? I was baffled by that. I was like, no, really.
Yeah,
really
surely not.
But strange. It was a strange one. But like I said, not a shock, but it was an upset, but not a shock.
And when we look what's next for Deontay Wilder now, he did talk about after the ring, and we did say you mentioned about him lifting his arm after the fight Behaviour didn't really seem too bothered that he just lost. Was sort of in a pretty decent mood. Deontay Wilder's a long career, been an Olympian. What do you feel like now for this point in his career would be next? Do you feel like this might be the last time we see him?
The interview was spoken like a man that's very content and happy what he's achieved. I think once you're at that point in your life, boxing's too hard. Yeah, I think you should get out. If you're content and happy what you've achieved, and then going on what you have achieved, don't stick around just to be a name for everybody else that's coming through. I think you should get out then. So I would like to see him retire. Listen, he was never known as a good boxer. So this when people say around, say, "Oh, he's rubbish. He's this, he's that." Listen, he was never known as a good boxer. He was known, built, performed, and achieved what he achieved through being one of the hardest punchers this game's ever seen. One of the very few fighters that at any given moment, with one shot, can render you completely unconscious and out, lights out. That's it. Not many fighters can do that. Listen, there's a lot of hard punches out there, and fighters get up and they're wobbly and groggy. This guy sleep people with one shot. Getting beat, not a problem. I'll pull out that one shot. Go out there early, one shot. There you go. Not many fighters are like that. That's what his marketing was. That's what his game was all about. Not the fact he had great feet, great movement, great talent. None of that. He came to the sport late. In a matter of short window of time, he ended up being, was it bronze medalist at the
Bronze
Olympic
medal,
Games?
yeah. 2008, yeah.
And he came into boxing and into professional boxing to provide a life for his daughter, who's ill. And what he's done for her and his other kids, I think he's got other kids now, is fantastic. He's been a great ambassador for sport in terms of profile, just that personality. Yes, he's said some stuff in the past where you're like, oh man, but plenty of fighters do. In the heat of the moment, how people are, personalities. That's what fighters do. But he's been a guy that's brought us a lot of entertainment, and he's one of those fighters where you don't want to blink in a Wilder fight. So I don't like seeing it where he's getting. I'm seeing on Twitter and stuff where he's getting absolutely rubbished and this, and let's not like rip him to shreds. He's 38 years old. He's coming off the back of 3 grueling fights with Tyson Fury. Now Fury might not be the biggest single shot puncher in the division, but he's very heavy, so he's got heavy hands, and he was landing a lot of thudding punches in those 3 fights. The second fight, he absolutely battered Wilder, and look at the bollocks he showed in that fight, because he was gone so many times. And then the third fight, it was just a tear up. So you've got to look at the damage that he's taken in those fights. But in those fights, it showed you that he wasn't just, some fighters are a bit of a bully mentality. When it's going their way and they're letting go of the bomb, they're fine. The minute it starts getting hard, they're looking for a way out, or they're waiting to get stopped. Wilder was never like that. Wilder was absolutely out on his feet and still swinging with Fury, out on his feet and still swinging, no legs under him, still swinging, still trying to land that shot and turn the fight around. So you have to give him respect for that. You have to give him respect for what he's given to the sport. So I don't like the narrative that a lot of people are coming out with at the moment on social media. So, but I would like him to retire now, because I think I think the only way now is down.
Definitely. And we do have to talk about one thing. You did tweet about your frustrations with it yesterday, but I think yesterday was a perfect example of what happens when we do let fights go on for too long. We do. The whole intention for yesterday, to be honest, was really to build up a fight between AJ and Wilder. It should have happened, and obviously now it probably won't happen anymore. So can imagine venting frustrations at that.
Yeah. Listen, I love boxing. I love the big fights. I love, when you see 2 rivals in there or on separate paths and whatever, you see these 2 rivals. I like it when it happens. I like it when they come together, because it's good for the sport. It's good for us. It's what we want to see. There was always that intrigue of what would happen if AJ and Wilder fight, who lands first. It's one of those. Now we don't get to see it. And the problem is, for me, it's not about last night. I never expected it to happen last night, because I think they started putting the show together with 6 weeks' notice. That kind of level of fight is never going to be put together in 6 weeks. but they've had so many opportunities prior to that, and I know AJ's agreed to it before, and it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating that you know, when you're talking about massive amount of money as well to guys that are already made massive amount of money, it's like that's just pure greed. Trying to make it even bigger. There's always obstacles. Get the fights done. If it's a good fight, have a rematch. You make even more money.
Yeah.
You know, it's and it's the legacy. It's like AJ Wilder. If those two fought, what that fight would have been, it'd have been huge. That on your resume would be absolutely outstanding. But you know, you look at Wilder now, and you look at his resume. Really, his you look at his best win. His best win was probably Ortiz.
Ortiz, yeah. Parker would have been his best win, I think. One of them.
Who?
I said Parker would have been his best win. If he would have won last night, probably would have been
if he
his
would
best
won,
win.
yeah, he could have won, yeah. But he's now you know, the fights that you talk about with Wilder now, really, you don't really talk about the Ortiz fights. You talk about the Fury fights. He didn't win one of the Fury fights. He didn't win one of them. But they're the fights that you talk about. But you know, it's great being spoke about. But the AJ fight is a fight that he had a chance of winning, but also just being involved in a genuine, that would have been an absolute mega fight. Yeah, frustrating, but frustrating for the fans because it's yet another massive fight that we never got to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely one of the biggest what ifs. Moving on to another fight last night, Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller. Dubois putting in quite a brave display against the big baby, and he definitely did. As you said, he probably did make him his daddy. So yeah, what did you make of that performance?
I'm so happy for him. I genuinely am because he you can't dress it up. He did bail out against Usyk.
Yeah,
It fell apart mentally against Usyk, and took the easy way out. Got a lot of stick for it, a lot of criticism for it. But boy, he proved himself last night. He proved himself. He proved to himself. Forget about us.
yeah.
He proved to himself that he can grit down and you know, grit his teeth and bite down on gum shield and dig it out. He's a good fighter, but we've had this question mark about him. What can he dig in? Listen, Miller, take him off the EPOs, right? He hasn't got that same energy. He hasn't got that same engine, right? Different fighter. We see it so many times. When these fighters come off of the shit that they're taking, right? They're not the same fighters. And in Miller's case, he's 300 odd pounds, 330 pounds, is 100 pounds heavier than Dubois. So he's still going to be a threat in there because of the sheer size and volume. And the fact is, he can take a shot because he took some licks. So fair play to him. He took some heavy shots in there, and he kept coming. So that could have easily have broke Dubois' heart. And I know that's what Miller was trying to do: just walk him down, break his heart, and then you know, take him out. But Dubois kept biting down, kept digging with him, and it was a hard fight all the way through. So he's proved himself throughout the fight. It wasn't like a fight where for a couple of moments he was uncomfortable. That was uncomfortable all the way through. Do you think the moving around in round one and early doors, you know, do you think that's easy for a big guy? It's not. He's not going to be comfortable doing that. You know, so he's right from round one. He's seen this guy just walking you down. Mentally, if you're frail mentally, that can make you implode. You know, so he checked a lot of boxes last night, and I'm over the moon for him. And you could see that in his interview afterwards. He was very proud of himself, and so he should be. I think what that'll do for his confidence going forward is massive. And you've got to say what, you know, the job that Warren's done on him. You know, stuck by him and looked after him and getting the opportunities. Last night there, I bet that team was over the moon for him as well, because it's like it's not repaying, but he's kind of repaying their faith in him, or you know, the efforts that they put to get him on a card like that, coming off of what had happened before, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And just quickly moving on to a man who is quickly becoming everyone's favourite fighter, Jai Opetaia, another destructive performance. And, you know, many people were criticising the matchup between him and Ellis Zorro, that Zorro shouldn't have really been in the ring with him. And what you do as a fighter, as Opetaia, you know, you provide a statement and you do that. And he done that with a destructive display in the first round, which I'm sure, like me, you were very, very, very impressed with.
Yeah, he's outstanding. I just like his old demeanour and everything about him. He was pissed with IBF, with what happened there. The fact that he's going in there now, not as champion, he'll have been pissed. And he's gone in there and thought, this guy's not on my level. I'm not going to let him get into the fight. First opportunity to say, I see, I'm going to take, and he did. Going back to the match, no, it shouldn't have been happening. But on the flip side is, if you're Zorro and his team and you get the opportunity to earn that kind of money going in at that level and test yourself at that level, you're going to do it. You're going to do it. It's an option. And listen, boxing, we've seen upsets in the past. So you just, if nobody took a gamble and if nobody was out of the depth, then nobody took those chances, then you would never see these upsets. You'd never see the likes of Mauricio Lara and people like that. Before fights like that, they were like, "Oh, it was this guy." Everybody in Mexico saying he's crap and this and that, and all of a sudden he's now look at what that did for his life. Fighters are always gonna have to take these chances, and from time to time, the upset will happen. But then when you're in against the elite. That's a different gravy. And Opetaia, I like his attitude, what he did. The guy's not on my level. I'm not going to hang around. Go out there and get rid of him. And that is what we want to see. And he's exciting. I want to see him fight the rest of the champions. I want to see him fight Billum Smith. I'd like to see him and Richard Riakporte. I'd like him to fight the Brits. I'd like to see, because let's be real. He's outstanding. It looks brilliant. But the higher profile fights that he's had are two guys that you would only put as prospects themselves.
Yeah,
Jordan Thompson, was a prospect coming through, and then Elvis Zorro is still a prospect. He's not fought anybody yet. That you would say is at the top end. So let's not get carried away talking about him like he's a pound for pounder.
Yeah.
He has pound for pound potential. And for me, he's one of my favorite fighters that I like to watch right now. That I'm excited about right now. That I want to see what happens to his career in 2024. He needs to be in the big fights with some big names now, because he's obviously proven in the world of other prospects and fighters at that level is far too good. So I want to see him in the big fights now.
Definitely, absolutely. And just before we do close this off, 2023 is drawing to an end as we come for 2024. Just looking at your stable, with this year's gone, with obviously Hobie Price in either a British title. Unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, suffering a defeat with Ebony Bridges. Stephen Cairns doing very well. I'm sure it's sort of an exciting time for your stable to push on to 2024.
Yeah, it is. I've got a young stable, and it's a stable that we've been working on for the last few years. Hopey Price now is in a final eliminator. Well, sorry, he's just won a final eliminator for the British title. Great 12 rounds under his hat. Going in to fight the champion now, Nathaniel Collins. Good fighter. It's a very, very good fight. It's a big fight. We're excited for that one. Stephen Cairns, I'm over the moon with his development as well. 7-0, 21 years old, big prospect at lightweight. Heavy-handed, took him out to America again. He's been out twice to America this year now, sparring, getting some great experience out there. Just sorting out his next move. So he's going to have a very exciting 2024. Young Muhammad Ali, the baby of the bunch, 19 years old. He's developing really well. He'll be back out in February. Very exciting. Looked $1 million every fight. And I've got Ellis Price about to turn pro as well. Who's Hopey's brother, but in his own right, a very, very good fighter. Every in the GB setup now he's won plenty of titles in the amateurs. A very, very good fighter who's adapting to the pros so well. Completely different to his brother. Different style that he's molding into. Bit of a throwback. I'm excited about his development as well. So yeah, a great 2024 in store. I'm really excited.
Absolutely, Dave. Just want to say thank you for always taking the time to speak to me. Always good to catch up and always enjoy speaking to you. From me to you, have a great Christmas, mate. Have a happy New Year, and I'm sure we'll be catching up in the New Year, mate.
And you, mate. I appreciate all your time. All the guys' times out there. Also, I just want to say thanks to all the fans out there that have supported my fighters, myself, my stable. It is appreciated. They give their lives to it. They sacrifice so much, and it's nice. Listen, you're never going to please everybody. I understand that, and everybody's got opinions. I understand and I respect that, but it is nice when people are backing them and supporting what you do. Things aren't always going to go to plan. Everybody has bad days. Everybody has bad moments. In life, not just in boxing. So we're going to get it in boxing as well. But it's just nice that they, like I said, they're a young stable. It's nice that people are getting behind them and support them, because it does mean a lot. So just want to wish everybody out there a happy Christmas, and I hope 2024 is an even better year for you all.
Absolutely, mate. Perfect. Always good to catch up with you, mate. And yeah, all the best for the new year, and I'm sure we'll be catching up soon.
Thanks,
mate. Top man.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
We need to think of a new advert for freebets.com.
Get your best betting offers from freebets.com.
Yeah, that'll do.
The following deals are now live.